Yeah, sorry about that again. So as I said, as I was saying before, Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans is someone I consider like a teacher, a mentor, a friend, who's somewhat of a technophobe. So I'm glad he agreed to be on this. I said before, if you were to ask me what kind of scholar I wanted to be like, I would say Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans. He's probably single-handedly one of the best dressed Islamic scholars they are in the Western speaking world, in the English speaking world, sorry. So I'm just gonna get him to come through now. I just messaged him, said he's coming on now. So hopefully it should be an interesting discussion. He's someone that I look up to quite a lot. So I'm just hoping he knows how to get on. Give me a second. Come on. Yeah, literally. So, funny enough, I got my a lot of my style and a lot of my tips from him. Like, I saw him, I saw the way he was dressed, I saw the way he spoke, and I thought, okay, yeah. And he's with us in the house. So let me just invite him. And hopefully it comes through. Hey. It's connecting. Let's see if it goes through. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
أستاذنا وحبيبنا.
لا أنت الأستاذ وأنت الحبيب. أنت الأستاذ وأنت الحبيب.
How are you?
Alhamdulillah, I'm well, man. Give me a second to.
No worries, no worries.
Give me a second.
No worries, no worries.
Okay, Bismillah. And just the setting on the lights. Let me turn the lights.
Put a filter for myself since I'm lighting.
In my office. Give me 1 second. Turn the lights on in my office.
Not to leave people in the dark. So as I was saying, I've got Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans, someone I consider who's like a mentor, a big brother. I said previously, if you missed it, that if you were to, I remember being, sorry, just gonna give a quick introduction to yourself. I remember when people asked me if you could be like any Islamic scholar, who would you choose? I said Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans, probably the best dressed scholar out there.
Nah, man, that's, wallahi, man, that's just your husn al-dhan. But I do appreciate the compliment, especially from someone as well dressed and dapper as you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So yeah, let's go straight into it, man. So our discussion is going to be around Black Lives Matter, what's happening in the world today. But I feel like before we get to that question, I'm going to throw a curveball at you, and I want to see how you answer this, Sheikh. So, are you Black or are you Muslim?
I am Black and I am Muslim. There's, I mean, this is where, the intersectionality, idea, becomes very relevant. If you're talking about, me being Black, it is Allah that forms you in the wombs of your mothers, as He chooses.
Yeah.
And now in terms of my skin being dark, yes, yeah. I have absolutely no choice in that. Race is much more of a social construct. It's much more created. Nonetheless, my experience of race, my experience living as a Black man is very real, and it does create camaraderie and solidarity with other people who are also raced with an ED as Black. My being Muslim, however, this is not so much an identity, but a responsibility. I don't like, when we talk about Islam as kind of an identity, I don't know. I think that gives short shrift, in a sense, to the moral commitment that, Islam, entails. So I don't see it as just like an incidental part of my identity. My being Muslim is very intentional, but my being black, though incidental, is also very much a part of my, experience.
So even me asking that question is a question that I get. Many black Muslims will receive that question, and when black Muslims kind of assert their blackness, they get this question: "Oh, you're picking your color over your race. I mean, you're picking your race over your religion." What is the kind of response to that? And in connection to that, is there a problem from an Islamic point of view of describing yourself as pro-black?
It's interesting, man. I find it troubling. I find it quite unnerving that this kind of dichotomous thinking is only a part of, it only enters the picture when black Muslims are asserting a certain allegiance or a certain primacy or a certain esteem for their cultural heritage and antecedents. It never becomes, like Uruba or Arabness is a real thing out of which a political identity was formed.
Exactly.
You're studying in Egypt. I spent time in Egypt. Egypt was kind of the home of Arab nationalism.
Yes.
And they talked very candidly about Uruba, this kind of quintessential Arab character.
Exactly.
Right? And what's interesting is that you don't find any, at least my cursory research, you don't find any Azharis writing Uruba is against Islam, to talk about, Arabness, or to talk about a quintessential Arab character, or no, you don't find any of that. In fact, many of them viewed it as part of the exigency of the time, trying to throw off the yoke of colonialism, trying to form nation states. And even though Christians were, an numerically insignificant minority, they had to form an identity around Arabness in which Arab Christians and Druze, etc., could fit. So they engaged that project. Now, when we looking at the times in which we are living, in which kind of a corporate blackness is beginning to assert itself and demand certain rights, demand certain recognition. Muslims naturally want to participate in that. And I find it, and Muslims should, I find it very troubling when Muslim participation in that very cultural enterprise is cast as some kind of betrayal to Islam. Right? Now, if you're talking about, it's weird. It's like, it only
very
happens
strange
with us. Right?
Yes.
Now, if you're talking about, a specific hukum, meaning someone is proposing something in the name of a black identity, and it happens to be something that is haram shara'an, it's something that is Islamically impermissible, then I would hope every Muslim of conscience would choose to do that which is Islamically permissible and not that which is Islamically impermissible in the name of cultural affinity or something like that.
Of course. And then I think that is a beautiful segue into somewhat of my next question then. I'm sure you're aware of the stances or the kind of talk from both sides of the Black Lives Matter movement. As a slogan and as a movement, I myself personally do separate the slogan from the movement.
Sure.
So, for example, I will say, when I'm saying Black Lives Matter, immediately I'm talking about the phrase itself. I'm not talking about the specific organization which exists in the American context, because our context is different in the UK. However, there's a lot of talk and a lot of issues surrounding Black Lives Matter. So, what would you say? Is it a problem of even this term? Is it a problem even going out and saying Black Lives Matter? Is it a problem? Should we be saying all lives matter as Muslims?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulih al-Kareem. I don't know. On the one hand, you have the pragmatic aspect that for some reason that I can't really put my finger on. I don't know why. Wallahi, I don't know why. This phrase is strangely resonant with modern audiences. You know, this phrase, Black Lives Matter, you know, which to my mind, when you look at kind of the rallying cry of the 1960s, it was Black Power.
Yeah.
Right? Black Power. Now, to me, Black Power is much more, it's rhetorically stronger. It would get my attention much more than Black Lives Matter. You know, to me, to matter is almost like لَقَدْ كَرَّمْنَا بَنِي Adam. Truly, we have ennobled, we have given all of the children of Adam an inherent nobility. Like, that's what it means to matter, to be a thing of consequence, to be a thing of significance. That is not, to me, that doesn't force my mind into new spaces. It does not open psychological space. Black Power, on the other hand, would open psychological space. I think that is a phrase that would intrigue me, would capture me in a way that Black Lives Matter, quite frankly, does not capture me. However, because I think the phrase is less confrontational, even though the people who say the phrase are often depicted as being angry and vociferous and truculent and you know, and like, but the phrase itself, it strikes me as more of an invitation to affirm that Black Lives Matter if you're non-Black. It strikes me as more of an invitation to affirm that, yes, Black Lives Matter if you're non-Black. And this phrase is resonant with people, actually. You know, so on the one hand, I feel like if the goal is to, you know, realize tangible benefit, meaning like to be effective, why break something that's working? This phrase is working. You know, you say Black Lives Matter and discussions are sparked. You know, we just enter new space, I think, in how we understand Black people, Blackness, and systemic inequity. It's opening space. On the other hand, I do worry that as, you know, as someone thinking critically about Islam, I do worry about us uncritically adopting paradigms and frameworks that come out of different regimes of sense and thought.
So that comes out of different epistemologies, basically.
Right, it comes out of different epistemes. It comes out of different epistemologies. I do worry that, wait, hold on. So I think for me, now we're not even talking about the movement yet. We're just talking about the phrase. Even deploying the phrase, it comes down to, okay, do I continue to use a phrase that's clearly having an effect? It's clearly having an impact. Right? You know, it's clearly having an impact. Or do I insist upon a kind of more creative or more imaginative engagement with the issues, but something that grows out of an Islamic epistemology, an Islamic regime of sense, Islamic, you know, language conventions and norms. Either approach a person takes on that, if they're doing the work, I think, you know, I think it's a matter of personal opinion. If the person is actually engaging in the work, if you want to use the phrase, or if you know, have some reservation about using the phrase, I think that's your prerogative. On the other hand, the movement, it's kind of similar. I mean, when it comes to, for instance, talking about excessive force in policing, police brutality, talking about wealth disparity, talking about you know, systemic inequality, I think this movement is again, it's been effective. The movement has been effective. On the other hand, there are certainly aspects of their platform that a Muslim of conscience must take issue with. You know, so the most obvious of them is like the LGBTQ AI, you know, kind of stance that the movement takes. But even more concerning than that, for me, is the stance they take on the nuclear family. Or the traditional family.
Traditional family. Okay, a couple questions there then. How do we understand that in relation to when, for example, when we know the Zoroastrians in Medina, would engage in incestual relationships. And when Imam Malik was asked, he kind of said that it's abhorrent in our deen, but as long as they don't like kind of do it in their own space, we kind of leave them to it. So so I know we can have issue with it, but can we not say that, you know, these are the certain things in the movement that we do accept, for example, and these are things that we clearly don't accept, rather than throwing the whole movement away?
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim wa salatu wa salam ala rasulih al-Kareem. You know, it's interesting, man. You know, one of the critical differences, I mean, you know, this is what we call in fiqh, al-qiyas bil-farik.
That's my
You're making an analogy, but it's an analogy in which there's some variance between the maqis and the muqas alayh. They're not the same. When Malik is talking, he's talking about a context in which Muslims are the dominant group.
Yes, true.
Right? Muslims are the possessors of political power.
Yeah.
And they are, in a sense, affording to the Zoroastrian community space to live out their own unique and particular religious convictions, but from a position that will not threaten or even challenge or even jeopardize the moral norms of Islam and Muslims.
Okay.
It's kind of like they are the small particular group doing their thing over there.
Okay.
You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Whereas I think concern about the LGBTQ movement is that because we are essentially a disempowered, culturally, politically, in some cases economically minority.
Yeah.
What does that mean for our ability to articulate our own worldview?
Yeah.
And I understand the fear that people have about that. Meaning, like, in a sense, we need some distinction. We need to be comfortable with our distinctiveness.
Yeah.
Hey, look, we're Muslim. We don't accept this, and I understand that.
Okay.
However, to your point, I do believe that one of the ways that we can actually show where we are different than some of these groups is saying, look, you have made your sexual practice, you have made one aspect of your humanity the cornerstone of your identity.
Yeah.
Right? You've made, for me, if you ask me about someone being discriminated against or being accosted or you know, experiencing, you know, bias in a professional setting, etc. I'm going to say I don't think that anyone should experience that in the name of qist and adl. Bisarf an-nadar.
No.
Regardless of kind of their sexual practice, that isn't my framework. I don't see human beings through what for me is essentially a private act. Right? I separate public cells from private acts.
Yeah.
And you have kind of a different kind of identity construction that this private act is kind of the main part of your public self. So you put me in a position that is not from my, like, that's not, you know, I'm flying in air that is not native to my wing. As a Muslim. So you're asking me to judge you on the basis of what you do sexually, whether I accept that, reject that. I reject the entire framework. I think that this is a place where I reject the entire framework. You know, if you're talking about people being treated well, well, of course I believe in that. If you're asking me about the morality of certain lifestyle choices, then I'm duty bound as a Muslim to tell you this is la yuridillah. This is not pleasing to God. This is not acceptable to God. But again, I'm talking about an act.
Yeah, not the person.
I'm not talking about an identity. Now, once you shift from talking about an identity to talking about an act. I mean, we do work with all kinds of people that engage in acts.
Yeah, of course.
That we don't agree with.
Of course.
You know, the biggest of them is associating partners with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Exactly. Exactly.
Right? And we formed coalitions with Christians and atheists and humanists, agnostic folks, and we've worked with them. I'm always confused as to why this is so different. And I think it's because we're accepting kind of their framework. When talking with some Muslims who identify as such, right? It hit me when they were asking me about it, and it was a lecture that was unrelated to sexuality, but they totally put me on the spot at the end of the lecture. What do you think about this? And
was that last time we spoke about it? I think you said that you got into some fire about it.
Yeah, exactly. And as I was talking, I realized that our difference was really in ta'rifat. Okay. It was in kind of like definitions. Yeah. Because when you ask me, and I respond to you by saying it's haram, it's impermissible, etc. I'm talking about an action. I'm saying that you are engaged in an action that is impermissible. But what they're hearing is I'm haram. That's what they hear. They hear just saying I'm haram. And what I'm saying is, no, you're doing something haram.
Yeah.
There's no way, until we can get those basic definitions established, there's no real way for us to have a conversation.
No,
so
I agree.
So to Black Lives Matter, if I understand them to be people advocating for essential social change, but doing some things that are wrong, right, or advocating for actions that are wrong, I think that there is some room for me to work with them personally.
Thank you.
Just as I would work with Christians or Jews, who wrongly fail to acknowledge the prophethood of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But if I accept their framework about like this being the cornerstone of their identities, then it would be very, very difficult for me to work with them.
Okay, I think that's a very fair answer. Thank you very much for that. So to summarize that, we're saying that, okay, we're talking about the person, talking about the act, their kind of framework. But I use just a short answer. As a Muslim in the West, should we support the call of Black Lives Matter? And are you saying that we just support the call, or we should support the organization, or we support both?
I'm gonna answer like a politician. I think we should support them in khair, if they're doing something good, while making our position, very clear, if possible. On the other hand, if somebody has reservations, this is not the end of the world. I think Muslims should not be presented with look, if you don't support Black Lives Matter, you're not woke and you don't love Black people. No. If a person wants to engage the work, but through other means that they feel more...
I think that's fair, but how about those who are almost using... this is a real issue now. People might be using this excuse, which I find an excuse, when people who are not doing the work, for example, they're not engaged in the discussion, they've never been championing Black lives or even calling out anti-Black racism within Muslim communities as opposed to society, and then using this point of the LGBT thing. I don't want to go on about LGBT for too long, but using this point of the LGBT to say, no, we can't get involved. And many young Black Muslims feel like I'm acting as a proxy for them. They feel this is very suspect.
Yeah, no, I think they have every right to. I think, if you have always shown yourself to be ambivalent toward issues that impact Black people, you then have a movement that begins to gain momentum advocating for the dignity of Black lives. And then you say, well, we can't support that movement because of this particular detail of their platform. Basically, that person has no integrity. It's like, we don't believe that you even have the best interests of Black people at heart. So why would we care what you say?
Yeah, for real.
So I totally understand that. But I'm speaking as myself. I'm not speaking as those people.
Yeah,
I'm speaking as myself. And I just think that this is an area where what is important is the work.
Yes.
If you engage the work by working with folks from Black Lives Matter and you can do so with integrity as a Muslim, then I think you should engage.
Okay.
If you feel compromised, like I can't engage this work with them, engage the work in a different way.
Alhamdulillah, 100%. 100%. Just a few other things then. What do we mean? Well, could be another talking point that seems to be quite. People say it's divisive, which I don't think is divisive. But what would you say? What do we say when we say white privilege and white supremacy?
You know, I think white privilege. Is a way of denoting certain inherent privileges. That go along with being white. In America especially. And I'm assuming it in Europe as well. And in countries that, purport themselves to establish equality before law. Of course, for certain categories of people to enjoy unearned, privileges is immoral. It's incorrect. That said, now, and I think, and you have to talk about privilege, okay, let me start here. Some degree of privilege is natural. God has raised some of you above others in order to test you on what he has given you. Right? Some amount, this kind of, mythic Marxist, and it's only theoretically Marxist, kind of sameness has never existed in any human society. Right?
Of course.
I think, it's almost like, a friend of mine is a speech therapist.
Okay.
And he said that we all have disfluency in our speech. We all say, we all stammer. He said, but the rate at which we begin to notice it is about 30%. If a person, about 3 out of every 10 words, there's some disfluency, we begin to notice that the person has a speech impediment. Right? I love that. He said this to me just in passing, but I think there's always going to be privilege, a disparity in privilege. But the rate at which we begin to notice it is where it becomes unsustainable.
Beautiful analogy.
The rate at which we begin to know, there's always going to be some difference, right? But the rate at which it becomes stark, like this person has the same degree and the same job as this person, but 6 times the wealth because of generational and chronic disinvestment in Black communities and bank redlining. And that's like, it's not just a normal kind of privilege that Allah is talking about. We're noticing this. There's something wrong with this. Similarly, if one person has an interaction with police, and you just see in the way that they're being engaged by law enforcement that they're not presumed to be threatening.
Yes, of course.
They're not presumed to be dangerous. But then you see someone Black dealing with law enforcement, and they are presumed to be dangerous. They are presumed to be threatening, right? Law enforcement feels that they have to employ much more harsh tactics. These are privileges that we notice. This is not just, because sometimes the objection to conversations about privilege is like, look, it's kind of the Jordan Peterson argument. We can't ensure an equality of outcomes. I'm Muslim. I don't believe that there will ever be a perfect equality of outcomes. I'm just talking about inequality when we begin to notice it, when it's stark. When it's stark to us, when it's like, wait a minute, this school in this neighborhood produces a graduate that matriculates into that top tier of colleges and universities. This school produces a graduate, perhaps a valedictorian, that can't even read at a college level. That's inequality that is too stark to ignore.
What about the right wing talking point? And I do know some Muslims today are trying to say black people need to, and again, your experience is probably much more in touch with this. My next question: what was it? It said the black people need to get out of this victimhood mentality.
You know, I think you know, there are, you know, it's you have to, I think, to be a real advocate for black people.
Yeah,
you have to learn two styles of khitab.
Okay.
Right? And I see this in the Quran, mashallah, man. I think we need serious Islamic thinkers that are deeply rooted, deeply ensconced in the Quranic worldview and paradigm to really help us with this, right? So, for instance, when Musa, alayhi salam, approaches Fir'aun, he says to Fir'aun, فَأَهْدِيَكَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَتَخْشَى, I will guide you to your Lord and you will fear him. Right? And he attempts to get Fir'aun to repudiate, to give up his oppression of the children of Israel. Right? At no point does Musa say, you know, everything happening to the children of Israel is the qadr of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't, you don't say to Fir'aun, you know, the situation in which they find themselves is the qadr of Allah. You don't say to Fir'aun, you know, anyone who, it's kind of Ibn Ata'illah's famous statement, anyone who locates the ultimate source of their problem in created things is like a dog that somebody hits with a brick and then the dog goes and bites the brick. Right? So you don't say to Fir'aun, you know, you're not the ultimate source of the problems of the children of Israel. You don't say to Fir'aun, the children of Israel have to look at themselves, look at their relationship with Allah, look at their akhlaq, look at their... You don't say that to Fir'aun. You say to Fir'aun, فَأَهْدِيَكَ إِلَىٰ رَبِّكَ فَتَخْشَى, I will guide you to your Lord and you shall fear him. You say to Fir'aun, don't oppress the children of Israel. But when you speak, that's one style of address. When you speak to the children of Israel, you say to them, Allah is above Fir'aun. If we repair ourselves, if we repent, if we get ourselves straight with God, God will give us victory. God will redeem us. God will vindicate us. This issue of Fir'aun, this is only a sabab. This is just a means. This is just a means through which God is forcing us to repent to him because he loves us. Now let's get to work reforming ourselves, doing what we have to do. But you have to be able to speak with both styles of address. You see, because if you speak to Fir'aun with the latter style of address, you're almost telling him, you know, it's really not your fault. All of the wounds of the children of Israel, they're self-inflicted. They're bringing this on themselves. It's their conduct, their behavior, their disobedience that has placed them in this situation. So Fir'aun, you're good. Now you can imagine if an oppressor hears that, this justifies that it's not me. I'm not doing anything. It's them. By the same token, there is also great harm in speaking to the oppressed as if the oppressor is the main and ultimate kind of source of their problems and source of their vindication, their victory, their redemption. You don't, you know, that's disempowering. You know, I always say, and this is something that resonates with me deeply as a black man in America, I only have possibility where I have accountability. I can't do anything about what I can't do anything about what he does. And if you're talking to me saying, look, ultimately your liberation is going to come through him changing. Well, that just cuts my legs off.
Yeah.
But if you come to me and you say, no, you can be redeemed if you change.
Yeah.
If you do something different, God will give you tawfiq. And the verse in Surah Al-Qasas that Allah will make us warithin. Allah will make the dispossessed of the land, the inheritors of the land. Allah does not mention that this is predicated upon the oppressors in the land being different. No, Allah is going to do it even if the oppressors hate it.
Yeah.
So I think you have to know who you're talking to. The difficulty now is that we're often all in the same room together.
Yes.
That's kind of a consequence of our kind of global neighborhood.
Yes.
That when you speak, the oppressors can hear you and the oppressed can hear you.
Yes.
And it makes it very difficult to kind of pinpoint, your messaging.
Brilliant. I mean, that's been amazing. We'll just take a few questions. Are you hopping on the rush, Ustaz?
No, I'm good. Alhamdulillah.
Okay, very interesting question. So this is for one who lives in Egypt, actually. When my money is limited, should I donate to Muslim, Palestine, or Black organizations? And I feel like, again, I'm going to give Ustaz, I'll have my thoughts, but I'm going to give you to speak on the hukum of that.
I think this is kind of like, أنت بين الأمرين الخيرين يعني. It's not, it's not, which I mean, if you make istikhara and give to the cause to which you are guided to give. I don't think for you living in Egypt, if you were in Chicago or Birmingham, or you were in a place where I could say this is closer to you, then maybe you could give precedence to that which is closer.
Okay.
In the case of somebody being in Egypt, I think whichever cause they gave to, it would be Mubarak.
Inshallah. I feel like I mean, alhamdulillah, I agree with that. The only thing I'd say is just sometimes the dichotomy that was in that question of Black organization and Palestinian. Or sometimes the dichotomy that's made of like Muslim organization or Black organization. When we forget that majority of the Muslims in America are Black.
And I think, mashallah, that's very insightful of you to be able to look into the question and articulate the conflict that the questioner feels, right? I think there's no conflict in that. Perhaps the best approach is you give to one, then call one of your friends, tell them to give to the other.
Exactly. That's perfect. That does it.
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. Please, guys, post your questions. Honestly, it's an honor to have Ustadh Ubaydullah Evans here. So I don't know. Let me just get that. If you have any questions. Any takeaway thoughts, Sheikh, from this discussion?
Once more.
Any takeaway thoughts or from this discussion that you've had?
And I think it's amazing that this discussion is resonating in so many quarters of our community. That folks in Egypt, folks in the UK.
What do you think it is about this one? What is it about? Why is it different?
It is different. It is different.
What do you think it is?
Well, first off, I think it can't be separated from America's place in the world. Even though the cultural influence of America is declining, the economic influence of America is declining, it is still the epicenter of so much that happens in the world.
Yes.
And this has always been America's, it's not a secret, but somehow America has been able to cover this aspect of its legacy. When I see Americans talking about majority Muslim nations and using this moralizing kind of, those people talking about freedom and democracy and free and fair elections, I'm always flabbergasted. I'm always like, I'm thinking, for someone to think that America has any integrity, talking about justice and fairness and freedom, freedom. You know, as an American, I'm always like, I look at, and sometimes you see the Muslim sitting, just the casual recipient of this moral bashing over the head by America about free and fair elections, and you know, and I'm like, how is America? I'm like, how is America able to conceal what for me is the most definitive part of its legacy, which is racism, anti-Black racism, the subjugation of Black people, upon which America was founded, and upon which the prosperity of America is still built.
Exactly. So would you go as far as Dr. Cornel West says in that this is America's moment of reckoning?
This, without a doubt, this is America's moment of reckoning. And so I think some people this is resonating with some people outside of America, because this is an opportunity for them to say, wait a minute, we knew that our countries were not dystopias and your country was not a utopia. We knew. It's like, you've been talking to us. America has kind of posited itself as like the beacon of freedom and liberty and morality. And it's like, and equality. And it's like, I think the world is finally not waking up, but willing to say,
yes,
the problem is really you have the problem. Not that we don't have problems, but you have the problem. And when you look at the Black American community, and I say this, you know, I probably need to write a book like Suyuti, about the khasa'is, the mazaya.
Yeah, that would be beautiful.
Right, the khasa'is, the mazaya, the special characteristics. You know, Black Americans have very many, I think, special characteristics. But the one that I think is most striking is that in spite of all of the subjugation, in spite of the marginalization, in spite of the literal lynching and killing, this is a community that has been able to express itself very vividly in arts and culture. Right? It's, you know, this is a community that with little to no economic power, little to no political power, has made its mark globally through its culture. Right? You know, through its culture. And I think that speaks to a certain kind of resilience. Like, when you see Black rappers, Black design, Black linguistic culture, you know, making the strides that those aspects of, I think, Black American culture have made, don't think of that as just Black folks performing. You know, this is with no political power, no economic power, treated as a thing of no consequence in my own country. I've been able to make my impression on the world. Right? It's kind of like Yassine Bey said, invisible man got the whole world watching. You know what I'm saying? Invisible in my country of residence, but the world is watching me. And I think that people are fascinated with the story of Black Americans, because we've done, in spite of the fact that most of the media outlets were controlled by white people.
Exactly.
You know, and people of Jewish descent. But we've done a fantastic job of telling our story. And it's something that people are interested in. And this is why I think anything that impacts and affects Black Americans, the world pays attention, because the world pays attention to that community.
Oh, too much fire. I got more questions, but let me wrap. That was beautiful, man. Quick one. Really quickly. Should we be calling, just a side point, I know it's not related at all, but side point, should we be calling for the removal of slave owner statues?
Yes. I mean, for me, it comes down to the Prophet ﷺ said, La darar wa la dirar.
No.
You know, no harm in the reciprocating of harm.
No.
These statues are, quite frankly, monuments that, you know, memorialize the legacy of slavery and subjugation. And that causes harm to a great many people. Now, I myself, and this could be my own leaning.
Okay.
History, I'm interested in learning history. I'm interested in dissecting history, discussing history. The symbolic value of a monument can change over time. You know, it's almost like when we see, okay, I'll give you a, we're both Qahidis, right? We both in Cairo. We don't think about the pyramids as monuments to shirk. I don't.
Yes.
You know I don't think about the pyramids as like monuments to shirk.
Yeah.
I think about them now as kind of monuments to, you know, Egyptian civilization.
Yes.
Right. So the meaning of a monument can change over time.
Okay.
Right. However, if practically this causes harm to people,
then obviously
I think it should be changed. I think it should be taken down. It causes harm to people, man.
Yep. Okay. So if we quickly, where do we go? How do we hold Muslim-based organizations accountable when they do not include Black Muslims in various ways?
You know, this is where, you know, our, you know, Sheikha, you know, Aisha Prime, she said to, in one she was speaking somewhere, and she said we have to have a call-in culture instead of a call-out culture.
Yep.
Put a call. You know, sometimes I think it's almost like we act as though we're averse to putting a call. Put a call in, man. And when you call, I would you know, you have two real kind of conflicting values here, right? One is Muslims are still trying to wrap our minds around the value of representation.
Yes.
You know, what does it mean? Because if representation is the only value, then quality is not as much of a value. If it's just like, okay, we want a panel not of the best people.
Yeah.
Right? We just want a panel of someone who's of people that are representative of all of the groups we serve. Yeah. So even if, folks aren't exactly fit to the task of speaking about whatever it is they're talking about, it's like, just get a woman, get a Black person, get an Asian person, get an Arab person, and I do understand actually how conservative people feel like, no. If we take a literary canon and our goal is just to include writers of every background, how do we ensure certain standards of excellence that make the canon the canon? Yeah. Right? I understand. I actually understand that. Right? On the other hand, for oppressed communities, representation has always been important. Yeah. I mean, check this out.
It's symbolic, isn't it? It's symbolic.
It's always important. I mean, check this out. Check this out, man. What is unique? I want you to think about this as a student of Islamic studies. Yeah. What is unique about Musa? Given what you know of all of the messengers of Allah, all of the prophets of Allah, their stories described in the book of Allah. Yeah. What's unique about Musa?
I mean, what comes to mind is Ra'aytuhu Adam al-Shadid.
Yeah, I mean, yes, that he's dark skinned. Yeah. Yes, that he's dark skinned. But what's unique about his relationship to the people he's calling to Allah? Musa is the only messenger who sent to a people that he's not from. Yeah. You see? Yeah. Musa is not you. If this tradition of Musa was consistent with the other prophets, it would have been an Egyptian. Yes. That would have been calling for the Alim to the worship of Allah. Yeah. It would have been an Egyptian that was pointing out Fir'aun's misguidance. But it was an Israelite that was pointing out Fir'aun's misguidance.
Yeah.
Dr. Jackson said it was because in their position of subjugation, the Israelites needed to see one of their own challenging Fir'aun, challenging the power structure, right? If they had seen an Egyptian, if the prophet sent to them was Egyptian, and he was telling Fir'aun, I'll guide you to your Lord. They still had that still wouldn't have given them the confidence to rise up.
Ooh.
You see, they needed to see an Israelite challenging Fir'aun.
Yeah.
Right? So I think representation, even it has its place.
Yes.
You know, when I remember learning that from Dr. Jackson, I said, SubhanAllah, this is in a paper he wrote about affirmative action.
Yeah.
I was thinking, SubhanAllah, representation has its place, because if Allah did that the way he did everything else, it would have been an Egyptian that was sent to Fir'aun. But no, it was an Israelite, because the Israelites needed to see, we can challenge this prevailing order. We can challenge this status quo.
Oof. I'm just wary of time. I'm going to take this a couple more questions and that's it. This is a beautiful question. I think it's got quite a deep one, so I'm going to read it out. Dear Sheikh, in addition to the Quranic framework, would you support Muslims studying other epistemological frameworks in hopes of aiding liberation projects?
Yeah, I think as long as we study them as tools, and we have to remain vigilant in not allowing them to become more than tools. So critical race theory, for instance.
Perfect. That's a perfect example.
It's a way of talking about inequality. It's a way of talking about systemic racism. Yeah. And it has been very useful. I think it's very difficult, if not impossible, to deny the complete efficacy of that framework. To say that no one has benefited from it, that isn't true. I think, when you're speaking to someone, the goal must be, and this is what we learn in Balagha. When you were at the Ma'ahad, did you study Balagha at the Ma'ahad?
The Balagha.
Did you have? I forget our Balagha teacher. I forget his name. He had a mustache. He had a funny voice. Did you have it?
No.
He was, and all the teachers I had in the Ma'ahad before the Jami'ah, he was maybe my most passionate teacher. He was, even though he's in this Ma'ahad, it's not in any way. It's not. There's no prestige.
Exactly. Yeah.
There's no prestige.
But he had passion for it. Yeah.
Oh, he had passion for it. But I remember this from him. He said, eloquence is not about using certain words. It's not about employing certain frameworks.
Yeah.
Eloquence is about making your message reach the mukhatab.
Yes.
That is what eloquence is.
Yes.
It's about making your message reach the one to whom you're speaking.
Yes.
Right? So these frameworks aid us in reaching the people to whom we're speaking. If someone is white and committed to a secular democratic framework, critical race theory, is a way of, like, this is just a way of speaking to my mukhatab.
It's just speaking in a vernacular in which they understand, basically.
In which they understand the problem.
Yes.
And they can, move to deal with the problem.
Yes.
On the other hand, I have to be careful not to allow that to become, kind of an all-inclusive worldview for me.
Yes.
Right? And this is the difficulty that I think some Muslims have. It's like to utilize the framework of theoretical Marxism to address wealth inequality is perfectly valid. Once you start using that same framework to understand morality, to understand, so that you have some of these theorists that the only thing they see in society is power.
Yes.
So that now when they're talking about our ahkam, they're talking about our Shari'a, they're saying, no, the Shari'a is only reflective of the prerogative of Arab, mostly, men. That's critical theory too. You see, they're saying that, no, these societal norms only reflect the wishes of those in power, those in control of a discourse. And I'm like, okay, when you were using that tool to address systemic inequality in Britain and America, I was with you. When you started using that tool to talk about the Sharia, you lost me. You see what I'm saying? You know, so you know, we have to make sure that we deploy them as tools, but we don't.
As opposed to them becoming this kind of concrete worldviews, and that we view the world and view our own religion through that lens, basically.
Exactly. And, it's almost like, no, I use it as a tool, but I don't view my religion through that lens.
Yes. And very finally, Sheikh, why do you, because we've only got 4 minutes left, why do you think it is that the left has won the cultural war amongst young people?
Well, I think, subhanAllah, I think, you know, it is actually, I think, just the normal course of development to be more liberal when you're younger and more conservative when you're older.
Okay, interesting.
Some people say the reason for that is older people are closer to death. Right? So the only thing they really have is a past. You don't have a future when you get old. The future is the maqbara. The future is the cemetery. You know, right?
Yes.
And when you're younger, you are much more open to new ways of seeing the world, new ways of understanding yourself. You feel much less wedded to kind of the understandings of the past. The mistake that's made, I think, there's mistakes made in both. And this is why we have the sunnah of the Prophet. If I were to boil down my approach to most of these, you know, culturally relevant issues, it's just iltazim bis sunnah. Iltazim, adhere to the sunnah. Iltizam bis sunnah, adherence to the sunnah. Because the sunnah is the only thing that can give us the balance necessary to make our way through a lot of these issues. I know we only have 1 minute left, right? But
we have about 3 minutes.
But you know, so the problem with liberalism is that it doesn't see the value of continuity between the old and the new. Meaning, like, we talk about something being a part of a tradition.
Yes.
That means that various people in various places at various times have found value in this.
Yes.
It almost becomes arrogant to suggest that you know better than all of them.
Yes.
Right? At the same time, conservatives don't recognize that if you adhere too strictly, too tightly to the conventions of the past, they become outmoded, ossified, rigid, and discarded. So you have to acknowledge and honor the past while staying flexible and malleable, right? Medin is the word we use in Arabic. The Arabic words are easier than the English words.
Exactly.
You have to have some maruna, some medin to be able to make the tradition relevant to the context. I think leftism is just more open, and that appeals to young people. And leftism, I think, focuses on repudiating harm. You know, we don't want to hurt anybody, which I think is a value that young people find more promising than older people that probably understand that sometimes you do have to take a stance that is necessarily exclusive, and some people are, not admitted.
Sorry to cut it there. Just we've got about 25 seconds left. Finally, thank you so much, Ustadh. It's been an absolute pleasure. I hope we can do it again sometime in the future.
Inshallah.
Inshallah. And how do we support your work? We've got 15 seconds. How do we support you?
alimprogram.org.
Everyone check out alimprogram.org.
We have a virtual program starting soon. Anyone who wants to register can register, inshallah.
Okay.
Check us out.
Alim program, check it out. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.